Hi, this is the case of Woeste versus Washington Platform Saloon and Restaurant. This was decided in September of 2005. The plaintiffs were Kimberly Woeste, who was the administrator of the estate of Thomas Woeste, and the defendants are Washington Platform Saloon and Restaurant, which is hereby known as Washington Platform, and Johnny's Oyster and Shrimp Incorporated, otherwise known as Johnny's. Now, this case is based on a civil appeal from the Hamilton County Court of Common Pleas. And Thomas Woeste, the appellant's late husband, died 1 week after contracting Vibrio vulnificus. And that's actually flesh-eating bacteria, flesh-eating disease. And he contracted that from eating raw oysters that were consumed at Washington Platform. Now, the appellant alleges that Washington Platform is negligent and liable for failing to adequately warn that eating raw oysters may result in death and for receiving and delivering adulterated oysters. The appellant also alleges that Johnny's was negligent because they didn't keep the oysters refrigerated after they harvested them, and they should also be held strictly liable for not providing adequate warning about the dangers of raw oysters, as well as for receiving and delivering adulterated oysters. Now, the Hamilton County Court of Common Pleas granted a summary judgment on all the claims. Now, the appellant contends that genuine issues of material fact were present against both Washington Platform and Johnny's, and therefore the summary judgment was improper. Okay, so now the facts of the case is that Thomas Woeste died 1 week after consuming approximately 1 dozen raw oysters at Washington Platform. The oysters contained the bacteria Vibrio vulnificus, which occurs naturally in oysters in warm water. Now, Vibrio is not normally harmful to people with a healthy immune system, but it can cause some serious bodily injury or death to people with a weakened immune system. So Woeste was particularly susceptible to Vibrio because he suffered from hepatitis C and cirrhosis of the liver, which impaired his immune system. Now, a warning about the dangers associated with consuming raw shellfish was located on the menu directly below all of the oyster entrees, but Woeste ordered the oysters without ever opening the menu. And the appellant argued that the warning should have been more visible and placed around the restaurant, and stated that had Woeste actually read the warning, he wouldn't have eaten the raw oysters. So the legal issues here are, can Washington Platform be subjected to liability for Woeste's failure to read the warning provided in the menu? Well, the answer is no. This is based on the second restatement of torts because it says that if a warning is given, then it's reasonable to assume that it's going to be read and it's going to be heeded. So the second issue that we have is, did both Washington Platform and Johnny's fail? Did they violate Ohio's pure food and drug law by serving adulterated oysters? Well, again, that answer is no, because the definition of adulterated does not include any substances which is not added to the product and in which the quantity does not ordinarily make it dangerous. And since Vibrio is a naturally occurring bacteria in oysters, it cannot adulterate oysters unless the levels of bacteria exceed the amount that it would normally render it dangerous. And this is not the case here, since Woeste's wife ate from the same batch of oysters and she didn't suffer any ill side effects. So a third issue we have is, did Johnny's breach its duty by failing to refrigerate the oysters, and did this breach cause harm to Woeste? Again, the answer is no. Now, Johnny's did have a duty to refrigerate the oysters because as the temperature is too high, the number of Vibrio present will multiply. But Johnny hired vessels to harvest the oysters, and once the vessel returned to land with the oysters, they were transferred immediately to a refrigerated truck. And as a matter of law, there was no evidence indicating that Johnny's had breached its duty regarding the temperature of the oysters. And finally, is Johnny's liable for not providing warning about the dangers of raw oysters? Again, the answer is no, because Johnny's placed a warning on each sack of oysters that was substantially similar to the one placed on the menu by Washington Platform. So, as a result, the First District Court of Appeals upheld the summary judgment for both Washington Platform and Johnny's based on the considerations that we just spoke about. So, The legal discussion involves that the plaintiffs claim that both Washington Platform and Johnny's are negligent and strictly liable for failing to adequately warn of the dangers of eating raw oysters fails as a matter of law, because no liability could be imposed on Washington Platform or Johnny's for an inadequate warning. The plaintiffs claimed that Washington Platform and Johnny's violated Ohio's Pure Food and Drug Law by receiving and delivering adulterated oysters fails as a matter of law because the oysters were not adulterated. And finally, the plaintiffs claimed that Johnny was negligent for breaching a duty to keep the oysters refrigerated after harvesting them fails as a matter of law because Johnny breached no duty regarding the temperature of the oysters. So, in conclusion, we can see that the menu warnings about the hazards of raw oysters was sufficient, and the appeals court held that Woeste heirs had no cause of action. Thank you.